Welcome back to That Dad Guy. It's August 10th, 2023, and today we're going to talk a little bit about geography, a little history, a little postage stamps, and if you're like me, learning new things every day is incredible. And this community that we have that are watching this channel and participating in this channel continue to amaze and to teach me new things, and this is no exception. There is a part of history that I know about, and there's a part of history that kind of gets blocked out a little bit. I mean, it gets blocked out because we haven't learned about it. And I think we, from European countries, I'm not saying that I'm in a European country, but Canada, United States, we've been heavily influenced by the European settlers that have come here, and our brand of history that we have focuses on what comes from our countries first, but then where our people predominantly have come from. So my father is English. We have a link to Great Britain, to the English history. I live here in Eastern Canada. We're linked with the French people as well as the English people. So we get taught that. But sometimes we don't get taught much about the other parts of the world. Yeah, I would say our system in Canada gives us a good overview of things. We learn about the Russian Revolution. We learn about some Chinese history. We learn about European history in as much as mostly Western European history. We learn about First and Second World War from an Allied perspective. And yeah, we don't get much else. I don't know a lot of South American history. Brazil, Venezuela, I know a bit about little things, but not overviews. Why am I telling you all this? Because I got a letter from someone that I've been communicating with, and I learned about a new place. She sent some stamps, and I'm going to show you those after, but it's from a place called New Caledonia. Now, to me, I have a Caledonia mountain here in Moncton. That's a region, but as far as a country or as far as a territory named New Caledonia, I had no knowledge about it. So, inquisitive mind, I went and started researching. So that's what we're going to get into today. So New Caledonia, if you want to put it in perspective, where is it? Find Australia on the map, and it is 1,270 kilometers east of Australia, and so it's north of New Zealand. That kind of puts you in the area. Or it's 17,000 kilometers away from France. Why am I using France as an example or as a pinpoint of geography? Because New Caledonia is a French territory. We're going to get into the history of how it became that and what it's all about. Let's talk about ethnics right now. We're going to throw up some charts here and some pictures. You know, it's an island in the South Pacific. It's got beautiful scenery. It's got amazing people, diversity. The Kanak people, K-A-N-A-K, hopefully that's pronounced properly. Kanak people are the original indigenous that are from there. Europeans have come, and I'm going to tell you when they showed up and when they started to make it their own home, and the conflicts that they've had between the indigenous people and the European settlers. We'll talk about that too. Export partners, what do they do? What are they known for there? We'll get into all of that. Yeah, there's 271,000 people that live in New Caledonia. New Caledonia is 3 different provinces. It's the North Island and the South Island. Those are 2 provinces. And then there are the Loyalty Islands, which is 3 other islands to the east of the main island, the Grand Tau, as they call it. So that's a synopsis of what and where in the world New Caledonia is. Now let's go into a little bit of the history. So around 1100 BC, we're going way back here, the Lapita people were using that area as their home. So it has been inhabited for a very long time. These were skilled navigators and farmers, and they were there for a long time. It wasn't until 1774 when British explorer James Cook, on his second voyage in the Pacific, found the big island. He thought it reminded him of Scotland, so he called it New Caledonia. And so that's where it gets its current day name from, even though Grand Tau is something we're going to talk about in the future too, because that's what they call the Big Island. 1793, William Raven, an English whaler, found the Loyalty Islands, which were, like I said, just east of it. And then in 1796 to 1840, some American whalers were coming into the area, and we were using that area too. So that's kind of where you had the exploration. There wasn't a lot of Europeans coming and staying there. They were going into that area at the time and just passing through, fishing in the area, maybe getting some sandalwood lumber from the area. Mostly that's all they were doing at that point in time. But it was also a little bit dangerous at that point in time because the natives that were living on the island, many of them were cannibals. So in 1849, they had a missionary group show up. They were on the American ship cutters. They were all killed by cannibals, so it wasn't very happy for them to come there. But at the same point, just prior to that, in 1840, the French and Australians thought that it would be a good place to go for blackbirding. Now, what is blackbirding? Blackbirding is the slave trade, and so French and Australian traders were coming in and stealing away children, stealing away healthy workers from New Caledonia and taking them to work on plantation and mines in other areas of their control. So that's kind of the dark side of what was going on at that point in time. But in 1853, Emperor Napoleon, there we go, it takes me a minute, and because I don't edit ahead of time or do that, sometimes she just kind of comes as the words seep out of my mouth. But Napoleon III, get back on track, where am I? Napoleon III made New Caledonia a French colony and created the capital of Noumea, Noumea, in 1854. So European settlers were coming, creating that as their capital and a base of operation. But why did they want New Caledonia? Yes, they had been taking the slaves out of there before, but now they're repopulating it. What are they repopulating with? Well, France made it their penal colony. It was a prison. They were sending convicts and political prisoners from France to New Caledonia, much like England was doing with Australia, sending their convicts in the early days there. France was doing the same in New Caledonia. In between 1864 and 1897, they sent 22,000 people to live there in penitentiaries. Some got amnesty back in 1888 and decided to leave. Others continued to make that their home. And then in 1876, nickel mines were discovered. It became a huge place for nickel, so they started importing workers to try to work in the nickel mines. And one of the things they didn't want to do was give any control to the indigenous people, the Kanak. They were not allowed to work in the mines. They didn't get any sort of gains from it. If they round them up, they put them on reservations too to try to keep them out of the way. So there was still a dividing gap between the locals and the European settlers that were coming to their country. In 1878, they had the first uprising of indigenous people. They had another one again in 1917. I say another because they weren't successful. There were armed conflicts. There were people that were killed. In the first uprising, there was 300 Europeans killed and 1,000 Kanak were killed at the same time. Smallpox and measles that the Europeans brought to the country devastated the population. So in 1878, there was 60,000 indigenous there. By 1921, there was only 27,000 left. It wasn't until the 1930s that their local population started to increase again. Now let's move ahead. So get through the First World War and get to the Second World War. In 1940, when France had been overrun by the Germans and taken control, down in New Caledonia, they had a movement to free France, free the French people. 300 people signed up, not a lot, but 300 people did sign up and join the Pacific Battalion that would go on to Africa to fight, that would fight with other countries in the French Polynesian, like Tahiti. They would all go off to Africa to fight to try to regain French control of their own country. In 1942, the United States used New Caledonia as a jumping off point for their naval war against Japan, and 50,000 people, 50,000 Americans went to New Caledonia, which actually doubled the population of New Caledonia during the Second World War. Now, in 1946, New Caledonia was made a French territory. Now, they were only given rights to the Europeans that were there, so it wasn't actually until 1953 that French citizenship was given to everybody in New Caledonia, no matter what race or ethnicity they came from before. If they were living in New Caledonia, they were now French citizens. By 1969, 1972, the nickel boom was going on. New Caledonia produces 10% of the world's nickel. So this little island in the South Pacific had big implications. They were a major trading partner with Australia, who they would send iron ore over to, and were getting resources back in order for smelting and doing all sorts of things in order to continue producing nickel. So it became highly linked with Australia. What else do we have here? Oh, the independence movement. Between 1976 and 1988, there was a real push for indigenous local independence, more control, and they had a couple accords signed that thought that would work to help bring independence, but really it was only giving more control to the Europeans, seizing of land that belonged to Aboriginals, and so they had some armed conflicts that went against it. There was an accord in 1985 that they tried to work for sovereignty, but it fell through again. It wasn't until 1988 that they put in a 20-year agreement that they would slowly give control over and more power. In 2018, there was a referendum. In 2020, there was a referendum to vote for independence. Both of those narrowly missed going through as they stayed with France. There was another one in 2021, even though it was heavily boycotted because of the virus that was going around. They didn't want to do it, but still voted in favor of staying with France. So that's where we are today. 271,000 people there. Their heaviest export partner right now is China, followed by South Korea, and then other. So whether that means France or other European countries, those are the biggest exporting partners that they have today. It's a lot of history to go through, and thank you for sticking with me as we went through it. And the reason why I did that is because I received this letter from Ambre in France, and she grew up in New Caledonia. She spent the first 13 years of her life there, and she sent me a packet of New Caledonia stamps. And when I received it, I had no idea where this was. I didn't know about this as a colony of France and the history that was going on there, the turmoil, the referendums that were happening even in the last few years that are there. So it's opened my eyes to a lot of things. And now it makes me understand the stamps even more now that I've researched it. I'm going to flip the camera around and let you see the stamps that she sent. I think having that history before seeing these stamps, if you didn't know about the country, gives you a different perspective of what you're now seeing. You can see on the stamps where it says RF, Republic of France, their local economy. They use francs for the monetary. They're not on euros. Get a chance to see some of the indigenous artwork. We get to see agriculture that's happening there. This one here is flipped sideways. My tongs with me right now. Get some floral. Wildlife. You can see there's a Sydney Olympics. There. A couple smaller stamps showing bird life. Go down here. we can see maps. The locals call the Big Island, I started to say that earlier, Grand Tau or Caillou, the Pebble. It looks like an amazing place. I mean, with it being in the South Pacific. Just beautiful blue water. And I can only imagine what it would have been like to grow up in such a place. See the ships, see the French flag. Things you might see in the capital. Probably some amazing fishing. That one is upside down. Playing cricket. You can see, even though it's a French colony, there is still a lot of English that is spoken on the island as well for trading. You can see the traditional games represented there. There's a connection there. You can see the kangaroo, trading partner with Australia. It's neat. All three stamps are put together, showing the coast. That one's upside down. Let's flip it around here real quick. We have a bat. Did you learn something new? I know I certainly did this week. Thank you so much for showing me your birth country and giving me a glimpse into history, letting my inquisitive mind go down the rabbit hole and learn a little bit more so I can have a better idea and understanding of the stamps that you sent. And if you're out there and you're like me and this is something new for you, and you maybe you have some of these stamps in your collection, didn't know where they were, maybe you have a vast knowledge of this country and are willing to share it, you're always welcome to leave comments here. I think the comments really help when people are watching some of the videos, because things that I don't know, if you look in the comments, sometimes people have put those answers in already or added to what I've already talked about. So I do appreciate that when people continue to fill in the blanks of where I may have left something out or something that I didn't even know about before. So thank you for those of you out there that do that with the stamps, with any sort of the history things that we talk about. It's a community channel, so it's great that the community is active and participates in it too, to make it better and stronger. And I did get a piece of mail this week. I'm excited about talking about. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow when I show you the mail that I got. But it really grips to that community aspect once again. So thank you to for introducing me to New Caledonia. And I hope you guys have made it this far, all the way to the end. You got through the history, you got through the geography, the postage stamps, and found interesting tidbits out of each of them. And for the rest of you, have a magical week. What, Polo? You say like, subscribe, share, and tell all your friends? Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Bye.